In her book To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee writes, "People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for." This quote rings so true within today's diverse classroom. As humans that happen to be teachers, we tend to want to categorize students by race, ethnicity, L1, previous teachers' opinions, gender, etc., because it's easy. It's easy to assume and it's easy to pinhole students and categorize them. This practice can create a classroom environment that does not aim to be neutral for all students. It can't. Even though some students will be from similar walks of life, each student has existing experiences and backgrounds which shape how they interact with the rest of the world. Closely linked with students' experiences and their existing schemata are those identities within their L1 and separately in their L2, in this case, English. ELLs who are often members of marginalized groups within the United States have to deal with and try to overcome the power relations at play with their social position, linguistic background, and their cultural identity, among others, as compared with the group in power. Diaz Rico mentions Bourdieu's idea of language as social capital in a society. So those who are native speakers of a high status language or dialect receive their language skills as a part of their social capital. But those born into a language or a dialect with lower social status have a lack of language capital to overcome, and they largely remain in that condition. So students who speak the desired variety of English are already a step ahead and tend to gain the teacher's positive attention, which Bourdieu says is an important facet of a teacher's social capital. So a teacher's positive attention to students who are in the linguistic, cultural, ethnic majority create a self-fulfilling prophecy for those students who are in the linguistically, culturally, ethnically marginalized group. So basically this just means that identity matters. It matters a lot in second language acquisition because our identity in a language portrays how the world perceives what we are communicating in that language. In RL1, the language in which we feel most at home when we communicate, because we inherently know the various discourses that exist and intertwine within the language, it's much easier for us to determine our position within these said discourses: social, academic, gender, socioeconomic, political, etc. There's tons of discourses. However, when we start learning in L2, all of a sudden we're thrown into a language with a completely different set of discourses. Yes, the same discourse categories exist, but they exist with their own defining power relations as compared with our native language and identities. So not only are students expected to navigate learning a new language, but they're faced with the task of figuring out how to position themselves within a new set of discourses to form their own identities on top of the identities that the people in power have already ascribed to them. In any discourse, knowledge, social relations, and social identities are simultaneously being constituted or reconstituted. Para que los estudiantes encuentren sus identidades en inglés, tienen que sentirse bien cómodos en la comunidad de la salón de clase. If students feel judged or uncomfortable within the classroom, it's likely that they will not open themselves up enough to communicate and share their existing knowledge with their peers, which is really valuable. A lot of what these ELLs have lived, students in the mainstream classroom have not. They've never been to these places. They've never lived in these cultures. They've never faced the kind of hardships that some of our ELLs are coming from, and they have no idea, about any of that. So a comforting, open classroom community is built by being open about cultural similarities and cultural differences. Affording students and their families the opportunity to make their home culture part of the classroom culture will allow other students and other families to get a firsthand viewpoint of some of the differences and similarities they might practice in their homes. An open, welcoming forum will dispel stereotypes and open up those habits in which other students might find weird as not really weird, but just different. Beyond that, to show families that they are not only valued, but also welcome to the classroom community, even if they don't speak English, it's vital that teachers and administrators make a special effort to understand and communicate with these families. Discovering students' attitudes about their L1 practices, and the norms of their L1 culture can be incredibly helpful, not only in decoding behaviors, but making students feel comfortable in the classroom as well. My main goal for my future classroom is for students not only to become proficient in English, but to feel as if my classroom community and instruction are a safe haven for them within the everyday pressures and stresses of the school day. In order to create this kind of community, I do think it's extremely important to talk to my students and their families, to get to know them on a personal level, and to embrace them within the classroom. I would like to invite students' family members to help in the classroom with housekeeping tasks, as well as teaching certain aspects of certain lessons that deal with students' native languages and cultures. When my ELL students see their family and members of their communities in the classroom, as well as listen to their unique and expert points of view about certain topics and issues, they'll begin to feel as though they are valued and welcomed as members of the class and hopefully of the school community.